What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Contractor Secrets podcast. We are in day 6 of the 31 days of value. My goal in this series is to give you a mid-year shift, help align your thinking with growth, to serve you in some way, and to be a blessing. If you would allow me to, let me do all that for you as a way of giving value. That is why it's the 31 days value. So anyway, with that said, yesterday we talked about the market segmentation theory. Wow, really hope you grabbed onto that. Listen to these twice if you need to. You know, really having a deep understanding of how business works is going to be really important for you as you navigate the sometimes crazy waters of business, right? And it allows you to anticipate change a lot quicker than your competitors. And unfortunately, it is what it is, but those that adapt to change are the ones that win more often than not. One of my favorite Wayne Gretzky quotes, and it's not going to be verbatim, but the idea here is that he alluded his greatness to his ability to anticipate where the puck was going, not so much where the puck was. And that was his focus. I mean, that's what he focused on. He always had a knack to identify, hey, where's the puck gonna be? I'm gonna align where I am with that. And that's kind of what's happening, right? In AI, in change, in the way people are buying is so much different now than it's ever been. So today's topic is about understanding how important it is to have your ducks in a row. Okay, so it's alarming to me how often I hear that insurance is optional. It's alarming to me how often I hear that setting up payroll is optional. It's alarming to me how often I hear that paying taxes and getting an accountant and getting a bookkeeper is optional in business. And again, in one of our days of value, we talked about spending the money, right? We talked about leading selflessly. We talked about these things, and I really want to highlight why this is important. So let's break this down real quick, because for me as a business owner, I remember when I first started my business, how much money was coming in, right? I was like, this is crazy, right? I just remember making a check every 2 weeks at the bank I worked at to now having an $800 check here, a $1,200 check here, a $2,000 check here, a $3,000 check here. And I just remember how awesome that felt. But also in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, let me just make sure I understand. Not all of this is mine. And that was a mindset shift I had to go through. For me, it didn't take me long to seek out a bookkeeper. And I want to kind of highlight a few things that you need to be aware of. Now, I don't know where you are in your business. I'm just throwing lobs. I'm hoping that this helps you. First thing you need to understand is that you have to pay Caesar what's Caesar's, right? I mean, it's biblical. That's the idea behind it. Now, there is ways to navigate not paying Caesar, but you've got to be in the game first. So for me, the first thing I did when I started my business was I found an accountant and bookkeeper. I didn't want to think twice about my taxes. I never wanted to look over my shoulder. I never wanted to feel scared about pursuing more business. And I can't tell you how much this has blessed me and my family. I don't know if you've tried to get a home before or a mortgage and you didn't have 2 years of tax returns. Well, I have been able to buy multiple homes because I've been able to prove my income. And that was because I wasn't just trying to get by. That wasn't because I wasn't trying to write off everything that I could possibly write off or do things in a non-honest way. I paid the taxes. I did the bookkeeping. I separated my bank account. So business-related transactions were in the business account and personal-related transactions were in the personal account. Okay. And I listened to my bookkeeper, and each year I would submit taxes on how much money premium painting made. And then it was an S Corp. So it was a flow through entity, which means it flows in through my personal tax return. And then there was a number that showed how much money I made. And then I paid the tax on whatever it was that was required of me. And early on, I wasn't sure exactly why I was doing it. I just knew that it was the right thing to do. And sometimes we have to live in that sort of mindset. We have an internal compass as a business owner that tells us right from wrong. And it's important for us to listen to that. I call it the Holy Spirit, but some of you will call it something different. For me, there was this thing in me that said, do it the right way. And even though, again, the short term was, well, I'm going to save money. I'm going to save $300 a month. And I'll try to figure out doing bookkeeping myself on QuickBooks, or I'll pay some random person to do the bookkeeping for me because they said that they know how to do bookkeeping, or I'll do the taxes later, or whatever. At the time, $300 a month was a lot, but for me, I always wanted to operate with a strong foundation. And I think that's an important component of business. So again, money management, getting the bank account separated, right? Getting the bookkeeper, hiring a good bookkeeper, a firm, paying the tax, feeling like you don't have to look over your shoulder, right? So let's think about some other areas outside of bookkeeping and accounting where you have to make these tough decisions. Now, again, the reason this is a topic is because a lot of this stuff isn't natural, right? Some of us came hot off of being an employee, and now we're faced with hiring bookkeepers, payroll, like whatever. So let's talk about payroll, because when I first started my business, this was a big question to me. And this question was, how do I pay taxes for people? And there's all sorts of options out there that pretty much help business owners navigate that challenge. One of those options was paychecks. Another option is ADP. So if you've heard of these, or maybe you use them, the idea behind this is they facilitate your payroll for you, so you don't have to identify your local tax entity, send the money. It's a very painful experience if you don't have one of these services. And I recognize that as early as like the third week after. And look here, not Mr. Perfect here. I was writing checks to painters straight out of my bank account when I first started, okay? So I'm not saying that like I'm flawless here. I'm just telling you, I didn't wait that long to get this stuff in order, right? So I was in the same way. I was like, man, I'm getting a lot of money. I should probably start organizing this stuff. I didn't wait beyond the natural, like, let me make sure this works before I invest, period. I was like, this is going to work. I need to make sure my foundation is strong. That's kind of the mindset, right? It's not like, when you don't do these things, you're kind of sowing seeds of like uncertainty rather than sowing seeds of faith. In my eyes, at least for me, I did that because I knew I was going to be successful. I couldn't see it right there, but I knew. I'm like, I'm preparing myself for success, right? I'm building this house for my family. One day I'm going to have a family. So I'm going to build a strong house around them, right? So again, when you don't do these things, you're pretty much sowing seeds of uncertainty. And when you sow seeds of uncertainty, chances are you're either not going to get anything to grow, or it's going to be some weeds, right? So sow seeds of faith. And it's so interesting how the way we allocate our resources, in this case, money, it's one of the biggest indicators of faith. And when I talk to business owners that don't have these things set up, it's almost like a money thing. It's almost like, well, how much is that going to cost me? It's like, well, first of all, you're sowing seeds of uncertainty. So whatever the future fruits are, that's the cost, number one. And number two, like in our economy and the way things work, you can get penalized. You won't be able to buy a house, and your financial foundation is weak at the core level of your business. So anyone that gets hired by you without them really knowing is getting hired by a company with a hollow foundation financially. So I don't know. That's pretty costly if you ask me. So anyway, with that said, let's get into payroll. So payroll, you have ADP, you have paychecks, and one of the things about being a leader in business is optimizing, right? So I was paying every time we ran a payroll, Paychecks was charging us like $120 a week. So it was like $480 a month. So as a business owner, one of your jobs is to optimize. So I'd never stop researching, finding things, tools, ideas, apps, anything that I can do to solve problems, save money, or speed up our efficiency. That's just something, number one, I enjoy doing. And it's extremely rewarding when you find something that either saves you a bunch of time, makes you money, or saves you money. And, one of those three things. Okay. So that to me is worth the hunt. So I'm always looking. So early on, I found Gusto, and that was through researching different things. Gusto is an awesome platform. I use them in both drip jobs and in premium painting, and that makes it really easy, right? So Gusto is a self-serve payroll service where not only does it help you pay everybody, but it creates a great onboarding and employee management experience as well, which I value, because in the same way that I want to showcase value to customers, I want to showcase value to my employees. I want them to feel like they're working for a professional company. I want it to feel like a step up from wherever they came from. And the standard is still so low that you have the opportunity to do that. And for me, I do it through Gusto. So, when it comes to payroll. So what I love about it is whenever I hire a new person, I put them in Gusto. Gusto sends them an onboarding email. That onboarding email includes them actually onboarding themselves, putting in their bank account information, downloading an app. Excuse me. A little cold going around right now, but we're still cranking. Downloading an app. They can actually set up a savings account in there and have a portion of their check, when it gets direct deposited, stored into a special Gusto wallet, which they love. It allows them to update their information. It creates transparency between the business and the employee, which I think is really important. They see their pay stubs, right? How many times have people needed their pay stubs to rent an apartment, to get a car, to maneuver in society? And I'm very passionate about this, because if you're the type of business owner that's still writing checks, if we're still doing Venmo, if we're still doing Cash App, that's the easy way, but that's not the kingdom way. That's not the way that's going to sow seeds of life into your team, right? Because you signed up to be a business owner, but really what you signed up to do was to have dominion over those that work in your business. So that's like your kingdom, right? Your business. And a good king wants their people to thrive, man. That's the focus of a good king is they're not in it for themselves. They're in it to better the kingdom. And if you're doing Cash App, if you're doing Venmo, and you're afraid of having tough conversations with people about transitioning to a W-2 and having to pay taxes, then I don't really feel bad for you when times are slow or people walk away, because you really didn't take care of your kingdom, And for me, it's like, I'm willing to have the tough conversation to take someone that was getting paid $30 an hour from a check every week to $25 and then have to pay taxes on that, but explain to them, hey, the reason we're doing this is for you. So if you go to rent something or buy something, you have a way to prove your income. So these things matter to me. So again, it's a no-brainer for me. Gusto, a payroll service, is going to help you really just make sure that all your ducks are in a row when it comes to payroll. And so the way it works is you put the money in your bank account, you go in every week, you put in the hours your team works, and then it takes the money out of your bank account. It pays the taxes, it pays the employees, and that's it. And it's awesome. So again, we talked about bookkeeping, accounting. We talked about payroll. The next one's insurance. So quick story. I've been sued once. A customer of mine sued me because he fell after slipping on a surface that we painted, even though it was finished, even though it was done, even though it rained the day before, and even though this guy was an alcoholic. Okay, I'm very passionate about this because I feel like I got completely screwed and I got sued. And during that time that I got sued, I had the pleasure of working with an insurance company. And thankfully, I had the insurance company working with me because it was very stressful having to compile all the information, having to answer emails, having to do a deposition with his attorney. And thankfully, I could lean on my insurance company for that. Now, I don't know what it would have been like if I didn't have insurance. Thank God I never want to know, because that was a really stressful time. So for me, having insurance was an extreme blessing. It's a no-brainer. It's almost like your ticket to entry into the game. Don't even play the game unless you have insurance. You're just like, we got to get past the I don't need insurance thing. Now, the one insurance that most people skip because it's expensive is workers' comp. So just so you know, I would want to hear, I got sued for $250,000 and the insurance company paid it. That was what happened. It's a lot of money. Now, let's talk about the other insurance that you need, which is workers' comp. Okay, so what happens if someone gets hurt on the job? Well, what I want you to do is I want you to drive down any city street and tell me how many of those billboards you see that say injured, or, Morgan and Morgan got me X amount, or Dan Newland made me, a millionaire. Okay, well, what do you think that is? That's an advertisement around mostly people getting hurt and lawyers understanding that someone's at fault for that and them suing whoever's at fault, right? That's generally speaking because the business owner didn't have workers' comp, or they do and they want to sue the workers' comp if they don't pay, right? So there's a lot of situations that go on. Whatever. Workers' comp's expensive. It should be factored into the cost of your goods being sold. It's a percentage, right? Generally speaking, it's a percentage of your wages. And all of this can be set up through Gusto. You don't have to worry about it. But the idea here is to understand that workers' comp is there as a cost of doing business. It is what it is. It's better to have it than not have it. And I had to use it. Again, I had someone fall off a ladder, broke both of his ankles, okay? And guess what? $170,000 workers' comp payment had to be made to the hospital for both of his surgeries, okay? I just woke up one day and that happened. Do you want to wake up one day and that have to happen and them not have any other choice but to call a lawyer to sue you? Is that what you want? I don't think so. It's not worth it. You got to get your ducks in a row when it comes to insurance, payroll, and bookkeeping. This is the big three. If you don't see these three things as valuable, it's going to be very hard for you to grow your business. Ultimately, again, you're sowing seeds of uncertainty. You need to sow seeds of faith. Very important, especially early on when these costs are a little bit higher. But sometimes it's not so much about the cost. It's about you investing your time. Maybe you're not like computer savvy, or maybe you just don't have the patience to sign up for all this stuff. Well, life's hard, That's it. I mean, sometimes it's hard. You just got to go through it. So this was a wake-up call value message to you today, is to get your ducks in a row. Quack, quack, quack. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow, day 7. Excited to help you out. If you're getting anything out of this, let me know. I'm looking to do a couple more business breakthroughs. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to drop a link in the description of this podcast, and we will hop on and I will try my best to serve you in some way to help you with your business. So just let me know if you're interested in that. You just book my schedule. The only thing I open my schedule up for at this stage of my life is a business breakthrough. I love doing them. I love serving you, and I love helping business owners find ways to win. So if that's of interest to you, go ahead and book it. I don't care who you are, what walk of life you come from, what you're doing, and don't be embarrassed. There's not being embarrassed about. Yeah, it's going to go on the podcast, but the way you should see it is you're also contributing to helping others too. Okay, so I think that's a big win for everybody. So with that said, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.